The morning sun struggled through the smog of downtown Chicago, slicing gold across glass towers that reached for clouds they'd never touch. Inside one of those towers, the headquarters of Sabletech Industries, a storm was brewing. The boardroom buzzed with panic. Coffee cups trembled on marble. The CEO, Margaret Sloan, sharp-eyed and perfectly composed, was seconds away from the biggest presentation of her career, a billion-dollar partnership deal that would define the company's future. But her team was unraveling. "Where's the prototype?" she snapped. "They're on their way up. The investors are already in the elevator." Silence, sweat, stammering interns. The prototype, a handheld AI device months in the making, had just malfunctioned during testing. Margaret slammed her palm against the table. "If this demo fails, this company fails." Downstairs, in the same building, Ethan Cole, a boy, balanced 2 boxes of lunch orders on his bicycle. His shoes were worn, his hoodie faded, but his eyes, a piercing blue, held something unbreakable. He delivered food to office towers all day, dreaming of the life he'd never had the chance to live. His father had disappeared when he was 10, his mother worked nights at a diner, college was out of reach. But Ethan carried something his father had taught him before he left. Do every job like it matters, because one day it might. He just didn't know that today was that day. Ethan pushed through Sabletech's lobby, breathless. "Delivery for the 32nd floor, Sloan, Margaret." The receptionist barely looked up. "They're in a meeting. Leave it by the door." He nodded, placed the boxes on a sleek counter, then froze. Through the glass walls, he saw chaos. People arguing, laptops flashing red warnings, the CEO pacing like a caged lion. Ethan hesitated. He'd always been curious about tech, the kind of kid who fixed old radios for fun. But he'd never had the money for an education. Then he heard it, the words that changed everything. "The AI's overheating again. It's the sensor array. We can't calibrate it in time." Something clicked in Ethan's head. He stepped closer to the glass, watching the flickering prototype on the table, wires crossed, connectors misaligned. He muttered to himself, "They grounded the sensor wrong." Without thinking, he knocked. Everyone turned. The CEO's glare could have shattered steel. "This is a closed meeting," she snapped. I'm sorry," Ethan stammered. "I'm just the delivery guy. But I think I know what's wrong with your device." The room went silent, disbelief hanging in the air. An engineer scoffed. "What are you, a technician now? Go deliver sandwiches." Margaret crossed her arms. "You think you know?" "That's quite a statement for someone in a hoodie." Ethan swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I've built small circuits before. My father taught me. That sensor's not grounded properly, it'll always overheat." She raised an eyebrow, half amused, half annoyed. "And you expect me to let a delivery boy touch $1 million prototype?" He looked her in the eye, steady. "You don't have to, but if I'm right, you'll save your company. If I'm wrong, I'll walk out and you'll never see me again." Margaret studied him. Something in his tone, humble but sure, reminded her of someone she once knew. She sighed. "You have 3 minutes." Ethan stepped into the boardroom like a trespasser in another world. Polished shoes, tailored suits, and him with calloused hands and a delivery bag slung over his shoulder. He placed the prototype on its side, unscrewing a small panel. "You've got a feedback loop here. Too much current to the sensor." He scavenged a paperclip, stripped it with his pocket knife, and rerouted the wire. The engineers watched, equal parts horrified and intrigued. One whispered, "He's actually doing it." Ethan looked up. "Power it on." The lead engineer hesitated, then pressed the switch. The device glowed steady blue, no sparks, no flicker. Everyone gasped. Margaret's face softened, disbelief flickering into awe. You fixed it." Ethan smiled shyly. "Just needed a little grounding." At that moment, the investors walked in, polished, smiling, oblivious to the storm that had just passed. Margaret didn't skip a beat. "Gentlemen, thank you for waiting. Allow me to demonstrate." The presentation went flawlessly. Applause filled the room. Contracts were signed. The company's future was saved because of a delivery boy who refused to stay invisible. When the meeting ended, the boardroom emptied in celebration. Margaret stayed behind, watching Ethan pack his tools. "Who taught you that?" she asked quietly. "My dad," he said, not looking up. He used to fix electronics for a living. Said machines are easy, it's people who are complicated. Margaret tilted her head. What was his name? Daniel Cole. Her face drained of color. She gripped the edge of the table. "Daniel Cole?" He nodded, confused. "Yeah, you knew him?" She exhaled sharply, eyes glistening. "More than you think." A younger Margaret stood in a cluttered workshop. Tools hung from the walls. Circuits covered the table. Daniel Cole, brilliant, kind, and stubborn, worked beside her. They'd built their startup from nothing, powered by caffeine and shared dreams. Until one night, an investor approached offering millions for their designs. Margaret wanted the deal. Daniel didn't. He believed the company's mission was about helping people, not profit. They argued. Words turned sharp. Pride flared. Daniel walked away, taking nothing but his toolkit and a broken heart. She never saw him again. Back in the boardroom, Margaret steadied her trembling hands. "Ethan," she said slowly, "your father wasn't just a repairman. He was a genius. We built this company together before I lost him to my own ambition." Ethan froze. "Wait, you and my dad?" She nodded. "We dreamed of making technology that would help ordinary people, but I chose investors over integrity." He walked out that night, and I never forgave myself. Ethan stared at the floor, processing. "He never told me your name, just that he used to work for someone who forgot what mattered." Tears welled in her eyes. That someone was me. A heavy silence filled the room, the kind that presses on your chest until you can't breathe. Finally, she spoke again. "Your father's design philosophy still runs through this company. Every blueprint, every model, his fingerprints are on them. I just didn't have the courage to admit it." Ethan's voice cracked. He died 5 years ago. Margaret's composure shattered. She sank into a chair, whispering, "I'm sorry, Daniel." Then she looked at Ethan, really looked at him, and saw not just the delivery boy, but the reflection of the man she'd lost. The next day, Ethan returned to the building, expecting nothing but to deliver another lunch order. But at the reception desk, a woman handed him an envelope. Inside, a company ID badge read, "Ethan Cole, Junior Engineer, Sabletech Industries." He blinked, stunned. There must be a mistake. The receptionist smiled. "CEO's orders. You start Monday." He looked up and saw Margaret watching from the glass balcony above. Weeks passed. Ethan traded his delivery uniform for an engineer's badge. He worked harder than anyone, not to prove himself, but to honor his father's memory. Margaret mentored him quietly, never overstepping, never forcing forgiveness. But every time Ethan solved the problem, she saw Daniel's spark in his eyes. One evening, after everyone had left, she approached him. "I've been thinking about what your father said about people being complicated." Ethan smiled faintly. He was right. She placed a small box on his desk. Inside was his father's old toolkit, polished, preserved. "He left it here the night he walked out," she said softly. "I think he'd want you to have it." Ethan ran his fingers over the worn leather handle. The initials D, C, were still faintly visible. He whispered, "Thank you." She nodded, tears shining. "No, Ethan, thank you for bringing him back. Through you, I finally found peace." Months later, Sabletech unveiled its new division, Cole Innovations, dedicated to affordable technology for low-income families. At the press event, Ethan stood beside Margaret on stage, hands trembling as cameras flashed. She spoke to the crowd. "This company was built on vision and integrity, the kind I once lost and was fortunate enough to find again through the son of the man who started it all." Ethan's throat tightened. He stepped to the mic. "My dad taught me that no job is too small and no act of kindness is wasted. I fixed a wire once, but it was really my father's lessons that fixed me. Applause thundered. Reporters scribbled. Somewhere above the noise, Ethan thought he could almost hear his father's voice whisper, "Told you, kid, do every job like it matters." Later that night, Ethan stood alone on the rooftop, city lights shimmering below. He held his father's toolkit close, looking up at the stars. A soft breeze brushed his face warm, reassuring, like a silent nod from the past. He whispered, "I hope I made you proud, Dad." Somewhere deep inside, he knew the answer.